Bless you, boys!
But now we're bound for old St. John's where all the girls are dancing either way. And me jolly boys, we're all bound away.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome inside an all-new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast to kick off your week. Well, it may be kicking off your week. It may be ending your week. I haven't decided. We may just drop this Sunday afternoon while it's good and topical instead of waiting for Monday morning. We'll see how this all plays out. It's always a bit of an adventure when we have this particular guest on. Making up for his disappearing act last week, Chris Hofley's here. What's happening, man?
Hello, sir. Good to see you / hear you, because I don't actually see you right now.
Yeah, we're both fine with that, I think.
I think, for a change of pace.
I should be upfront with you. You took a bit of a beating on the Monday show.
It's okay, I didn't listen.
No, I assumed as much. We had told the good listener that you were going to be here, and so we walked through it. Rob stepped back in. I wasn't supposed to be in town. I ended up being in town. We're dealing with some home renovation issues, unscheduled home renovation issues, unplanned.
Always a thrill.
Yeah, exactly. So ended up being in town anyway. Rob was able to step in, but I think at the end when we explained your absence, it was that perhaps there was one or two wine spritzers too many as you celebrated the Sens' return to the playoffs. Is that about right?
Yeah, something like that. Like a nice little white wine spritzer, just something low-cal and easy drinking.
But you're making up for it today. Are you having a pint with us? Are you having a Caesar with us? What are we doing here on a Sunday afternoon?
I am about to crack open a Mott's extra spicy Caesar because it is kind of brunch time, and it does come in a tall can.
That's true.
So I assume that was appropriate.
That'll work, yeah. We've had a bit of a gimmick going here that I was sort of allowing the good listener to take me or to come along with me on this journey through the Battle of Ontario and read into my mindset, my level of concern by the beers I'm drinking based on the ABV or whatever. So, I kicked things off before Game 1. It was Easter weekend. From Whippersnapper, I had a 5.5% Easter cream egg, and 5.5%, there was some things on the line, a lot of old skeletons being dug up with this series, but you're not too worried yet. After winning Game 1, dropped to a 5% beer, and then was after Game 2 was down to the Nita Light 4.2%. Nothing to worry about, nothing to be concerned about at all. And so I think people might be a little concerned to learn that after Game 4 here, I've jumped all the way back up to a 6.5%.
Oh, that's some serious worry.
Well, and I'll explain why. This is the Resolution IPA, a New England IPA from Bicycle Craft Brewery. And I was sort of like, it seems high. It seems like a big jump. But it says here in the description that I should expect this beer to be juicy. And I think this series just got a little juicy.
Ooh.
And
they should have called it Seeds of Doubt if you're drinking it right now.
Well, this is it, right? And there's like the fact that, just the name Resolution IPA, the Leafs have failed to achieve resolution here in Game 4. And in my opinion, really, really should find resolution in Game 5 to avoid some of these old demons creeping back in. We'll get to all that. But I think going into Game 5, that's where I'm at, about 6.5%, because I think if they let it get past Game 5, we are going to be into some worrying times as a.
You're going to be drinking like 12% Belgian Trappist beers by the end of that one.
Man.
I'm hopeful.
Yeah, there's some stuff out there, some Imperials, some 11% stouts. I did say there's every possibility if we end up in Game 7 that I'm actually over at North of 7 Distillery grabbing some of their leatherback rum. We're right out of the beer scene completely.
Straight out of the barrel, just dunking your head in it. Yeah.
That's it, man. Before we get into what we saw in Game 4 and what you've thought of the Battle of Ontario thus far, man, I don't know. It's been a month or two since you've been on the show. How you been, man? What's new in Hofley's world?
Oh, Hofley's world is just ticking along nicely. Finally, the weather's changing and it's getting better and not quite as all over the map as it was. So that's been good for my overall sense of well-being. Otherwise, yeah, just working away at the office and taking advantage of, got one patio session in so far.
All right.
Really nice days. So,
which patio did you hit up?
The Glee Central pod, naturally.
Your home base.
It's always the starting point and much, much too close to where I live.
That can be problematic.
ticking down the days till we get to the summer. Gonna pop out to the East Coast at some point this summer for a week.
Nice.
And just like in this new career trajectory I'm on, I have a bit more flexibility during the summer times than I did when I worked with the Red Bloods, and well, that was prime time season for them. So I can actually book a few little trips this summer. So I'm pretty stoked for that.
Well, that's cool, man, and hopefully, you'll. We're going to ask you about the CFL scene here in a little while after we talk some hockey, but we are approaching the 10th anniversary of TCA, and we're hoping you're going to be around for that. We got a couple of special little things planned here that we will hesitantly involve you in.
How many words do you think people have had to hear you utter over those 10 years? If you think about it, like that's a lot of
just blathering. Yeah, way too much me. Like, yeah, it's a lot.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited to be around for the 10th anniversary party of whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a beer.
I do believe you're up for that. We can count on you for one of those, and we'll try and keep a couple of wine spritzers in the house as well. So,
oh, lovely.
But let's not make people wait too long. Look, it was, I would imagine, for you, a nail-biting Game 4. The Sens jumped out to a nice lead, but the Leafs came back. We end up in overtime, Toronto having a 4-minute power play, which I don't want to project onto you, but I imagine that would have been somewhat stressful. A little bit of feeling of, oh, here we go, sets in. What'd you make of the night that was on Saturday?
It was that 4-minute penalty in overtime was more of a feeling of impending vomit from myself. I'm pretty sure that there were large stretches of the game that I was not having any fun. I mean, I like to say like I hardly had any fun during a series like this because I just like no matter my age, 40-ish now.
That's all I give it to. That's all I say.
When these teams, obviously a lot younger during the early Battle of Ontario's in the playoffs, but it's that sense of freaking hockey anxiety that comes back. I'm like, oh, this is familiar. So yeah, I mean, sucks. Like they had to win. They won. They started off really well. He had one of the worst second periods I've seen them play in a little while.
One shot, I believe.
They dug. He had one shot and didn't come to like 11 minutes in.
That doesn't scream desperation, right? Like you're throwing
everything.
No,
it doesn't. But they found it eventually.
Yep.
And like I'm more realistic now as the hockey fan than I was back in the day. So that 4-minute penalty happened. I was like, well, shit.
I was just waiting, man. Whether it be inside that penalty or right after, I'm like, they're coming back. Like we're going to be shorthanded, right? Like at some point, Toronto is going to get the even up call. Now, I don't really remember off the top of my head how much longer after that penalty. The game went a little while, and they didn't end up giving a Toronto even up. I'm sure there was plenty of talk on the bench of, sticks down, don't do anything that's going to give them a chance now to even this up. Ottawa didn't end up needing it. It was Jake Sanderson who gets the winner. Look, he's had an interesting season, man. Rob and I have talked about this a little bit. You and I may have the last time you were in. It sort of felt through the fall like he was... I don't want to be too hard on him, but he didn't look as good as I think we're used to him looking. And there was some talk that maybe, he was stressing over the Four Nations selection process or whatever, because as soon as he wasn't selected, his game started to turn around. Then they end up with some injuries. He plays at the tournament anyway, plays very well. And down the stretch ever since then, he's looked like himself again. What have you made of his sort of first few games? Has he stood out to you? Have you been looking for more, or has he kind of exceeded your playoff expectations? Or
I think his playoffs are kind of like a microcosm of his whole season. Like there's some moments where he looks like, and I do think that he's going to be one of the best defensemen in the league for a long time, and he's young. Mm-hmm. So I think there's probably an element of that in his head that when players are at this point in their career, they know what the expectations are on them going forward, and I think that can kind of mess with your head a little bit.
Sure.
But no, I think when he's on and he's getting more consistent. I think the playoffs been up and down for him too. And I'm so happy to see him score the winner last night because he had not such a great looking moment on that breakaway that the Leafs scored on.
Yes.
To tie it up where he just looked. He
and Zoo clearly miscommunicated there on something.
Yeah, there was something that missed there. So it was a little bit of a redemption story for him to come back and do what I've been screaming at the TV for that team to do, to just launch pucks on the Toronto net. Like you're not gonna beat Stores like super clean if you're shooting right in front of him into his big chest. So
No,
if
probably
you can,
not.
like, if you're lobbing pucks out on his rebound control, it'd be pretty shaky.
Yep.
But that one just, that's a good player scoring a good goal at the biggest moment of his career pretty much so far. So pretty stoked, but I think there's a lot. He's gonna be a really good player, and he's on the upswing for sure.
One of the things that has, been on my mind, and perhaps my my beer choice today, gives a better insight into this. I wouldn't say yet that I'm worried. If they lose Game 5, I am absolutely worried, and we can have that conversation. But that's why Game 5 will be so stressful for me. But one of the things that does get into my head a little bit right now is it wasn't just Sanderson that we saw get off the schneid. We also saw Stützle score. And he had it was a really nice goal on the power play off that god-awful, stupid Max Domi penalty. And you were sort of feeling like, man, if Toronto could just wrap this up in 4 without Stützle ever really getting involved. I think he went into that game with 1 assist. Giroux, I believe, had the 5-on-3 goal. But like some of the big guns, Cousins hasn't done much. Batherson had a rough night, a little redemption as well. He has scored. But it sort of felt like if you could just quietly wrap this up in Game 4 before any of these guys start to get their feet underneath them and gain any confidence, you might kind of, I still think Toronto is the favorite and they're up 3-1, all of that stuff. But it does feel like, okay, Stützle's got one now. That probably goes to his confidence, goes to his legs. Sanderson gets a game winner. The longer this goes, the more comfortable some of these young guys making their first trip into the playoffs for the Senators, the more they start to feel it a little bit. Maybe the more they start to believe a little bit, and having them both score big goals can't hurt, man.
Oh no, it's huge, and it's dangerous to wake up a guy like Timmy. Like these guys are young; they haven't been in the playoffs at this level. Sanderson, even after the game, was asked, "Are you nervous before a big game like this?" And he was like, "Of course."
Yeah.
If you're not, then you're not. Something's wrong. So I think for a guy like Stützle, you just got to settle down when you get a goal scorer's goal like that one.
Yep.
I think that bodes well or badly, depending on which side of this equation you're on. And Ullmark too. Ullmark had a good comeback game.
Yep.
He's a guy that when he's on, he's really on. This week I still want more from him. I want that world beater save once in a while that we haven't really been getting, but he kept him in it last night.
There was one or two late that were crazy. I'm trying to remember one wild one there that I can't remember now off the top of my head who he rocked.
And a lot of bouncing pucks around the crease and guys whacking at. So I think, if he's on, then he's giving the lads a chance. And if we can get some of those guys that are off to a bit slower, nervous starts getting going, then who knows what happens. I'm not, 3-0 Cole is a tough one to recover from. But if anyone's going to do it to any team, it's going to be against the Leafs, I assume.
Well, this is it, right? Like, I've got a couple of texts. Like, my phone blew up after that overtime. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And I just went to bed. Like, I don't have to deal with this. The fact that all of Ottawa is having a good time and apparently half of it want to share that with me doesn't really...
Isn't that nice? You have fans.
That doesn't register for me. I'm just going to shut that down, close Twitter, all of it. And look, I get it. Sens fans should be enjoying that. But I don't need to attend the party, right? Like, I'm not going to have fun here.
No, I was doing that the first few games. I wasn't watching the highlights much. And, last night I was like, I'll watch the same TSN highlight patch 4 times in a row. That sounds good.
Of course, man. I'm curious, the Battle of Ontario, we made a bunch of it going into the series, but I don't know how much of a thing this was for any of the athletes. It's for fans like us who remember the original, and it hasn't really been a thing for 20 years. The Sens were good for a long time coming out of the lockout, and the Leafs were not. The Leafs have been pretty good since the Sens' last playoff appearance, though they haven't really had any playoff success. But it's been hard to reignite it. I'm curious, man, as far as this series has gone on, is it just been frustration at how the Sens had played and found themselves down 3-0? Or has there been a Leaf that has gotten under your skin like an old Darcy Tucker or a Shane Corson? Like, has it done anything new for you in terms of finding somebody new to hate?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like, it's so in my DNA to just hate that team as a unit.
I don't care who's behind that logo. I just hate it.
I don't think there really is right now a guy that I really want to like personally maim, like I did with a Darcy Tucker back in the day. I think you're right about the Battle of Ontario. You know, whatever that means in a given season. I think it's finally escalated a bit thanks to you guys absolutely having a meltdown over an empty net slash shot.
We see that differently too, funny enough.
I think it's kind of worked its way up from there. There's a little more hatred between the teams, and everyone really doesn't like Ridley Gregg very much.
This is it. Like, that would be the name, but I already kind of hated that guy. So
yeah, so like, love him. And he's such a soft-spoken, nice kid when you hear him in interviews, and he has that element on the ice where, you know,
they always do, man.
Wants to shit.
It's that neighbor you never
shower or whatever.
He always kept to himself. He was such a quiet guy. Like,
we never saw it coming.
Right.
Yeah. So like that kind of stuff, I love that kind of stuff, and we see that more with Montreal in the sense of the last couple of years. You know, played them in the playoffs more recently. They're even closer to Ottawa than Toronto is. I love that rivalry too. But yeah, no, Toronto just as a unit, I'm really not a fan. But there's no one that I really want to be out there, like needing to be out there to smack around. I mean, I don't like Matt Domi for a bunch of reasons.
Yep.
But he's still not that pest and like that danger.
Well, this is maybe the one thing in the podcast we actually agree with or agree on is I don't really care for Matt Domi.
I mean, there's a reason why he's bounced around a bit.
100%
on the friggin' Leafs, but he, like his dad was a menace to society, right? Like one of the best to ever play that role. He is not his father.
No.
You know, has maybe silkier miss than his dad did, but
he's a menace to our defensive zone coverage, is what he is.
Yeah, that is reasonable. And I've said, like, I mean, this team, maybe it's come with my wisdom and maturity over the years, but I like this hockey. I like the Leafs. Obviously, have a really good team, and there is a extra element of maturity with them this year. I find that they're not.
It does look like
absolutely having a meltdown after like every possible sort of call goes the wrong way. So,
well, this is it. Like, this was always going to be the thing, right? The Sens were going to have to put them in a position to have that meltdown. And like I said, it sort of felt like maybe, you know, when we talked about Stützle getting on the board and Sanderson getting going, like it felt after 3 games like the Leafs may just tiptoe through this round without ever being put in a position to have to test their mettle and see if they are any different and see if they can survive, you know, a pressure situation. I still don't think at 3-1 you feel a whole lot of pressure. At 3-2, though, and going back to Ottawa, knowing if we lose this, oh my God, it's happening again. It's Game 7. Anything can happen. All that stuff can rush back into your head. But I think with this group, this coaching staff, you know, they've also brought in some veterans with your Tanevs and your OELs and your Paciorettys and whatever, I assume is going to stay a little calmer. But I have been fooled before, Hofley, with this team. So I just think,
I mean, that team, there's no bigger pressure cooker in the league, right? I'm playing in Toronto with the history they have of Shoki in the playoffs. So, 3-2. I think that city is, I mean, you already see it. Some of the commentary from Leafs fans is just starting to get a little squirrely. So, I think it's the fan base more than anything. I mean,
and yet, no, you're right about that. No, you're for sure right about that. And like, I've heard guys talk about it before, like when they went out and brought in Ryan O'Reilly. I thought that was a terrific addition for Toronto a couple of years ago. And he said in a comment not too long after the season ended, like, oh my God, like it's happening again. It's happening to me too, right? Like I've watched it from afar for so long. I was a piece brought in to help fix it. I'm a leader. I've won a cup, all these things. No, it's still happening. So I don't think it'll take a lot for that to creep back into some of these guys' heads. But, you know, there was some talk from a lot of people that this was like, I don't remember hearing anyone say this would be a sweep. So it's too soon to panic. But yeah, if it starts creeping into 6 or 7, then you never know how the Leafs may or may not respond to it.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel totally like a 3-1 lead either in this series. Like the 3 overtime games in a row. That's quite something, and it's not good for my heart rate at all.
Both teams have gone lengthy stretches with no shots. Like it's been a close series, man.
And the momentum swings are massive.
Yes.
Like, you know, can't get the puck off Lotto's stick for 5 minutes.
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, like, you haven't had a shot in 8 minutes.
Right.
Well, come on, let's find some consistency here, fellas. You're making me.
I had somebody say to me online on Saturday night that, I should find a Sens fan similar to like a Steve Dangle and do like a live stream during the game. And I said, you have no idea what a terrible broadcast that would be. Like, Dangle, for what he does, is very good. I said, I sit on the couch, I hate everything, I mutter to myself. The extent of my excitement is like when the Leafs score, I'm like, fucking good. And when they get scored, I'm like, fuck off. And that's it. Like, that's not a good webcast.
No, and I'm the same way, though. I turned into, like, I was out watching a game with some friends, and at the intermission before overtime, I came home to watch it in my like safe space.
Yeah,
alone,
this is it, man. Overtime, especially.
I'm not shit for public consumption at that point. I lose all sense of how old I am or how I should act in public, and it's just not good. So I come back, I get on the couch, and try
with the dog, and exactly.
Yeah, just holding onto the dog under my weighted blanket. Yeah.
Yeah, no. What did you make of the turnout for Game 4? Because in Game 3, it looked like the crowd had done a really good job. I know the organization had focused on this, of keeping Leaf fans out. And you never keep us out completely. There's always a bit of an infestation.
That's probably the closest they have, I think, in Game 3, for sure.
And in Game 4, it looked like a few more got in, some more got in. Whether or not, that was being 3-0 down and people like, I'm out, like, I don't want to be there to watch the sweep, or, it doesn't look like it's happening for us this year. I think Down Goes Brown tweeted that, like, I can get a mortgage payment out of this selling to a Leaf fan. Our friend Don in Farhaven tweeted out, the lower bowl has committed treason. It's, I
love that.
Yeah, for sure, man. But what did you make of it? Like, on TV, where the way you were looking at it, did it surprise you that there was more blue in the crowd, or?
Oh, no, not in the least. I figured there would be. And I mean, you can shirt Sens fans or any fan all you want for reselling tickets, but like, those are fucking expensive tickets. Yep. And when you're down at a 3-0 goal, I'd really not blaming them for wanting to recoup some of those costs just in case. I think, you could always try harder to sell to another Sens fan, but it's so hard to guarantee how much work are you going to put into it, right?
And a Leaf fan in that situation would be like, oh my God, they're going to sweep. I have to be there. Like, he'll pay you more than another Sens fan, right? Like,
so if someone's going to give you 3 times the face value or whatever, then fill your booth. I don't blame you in the least. But I think overall for Ottawa in the Toronto game, it was still a really strong show. You could tell the place was loud. It seemed like they scored a goal when they scored a goal, which is nice. And I mean, you're always going to have that. And
Game 6, it'll go back to being like Game 3. If the Sens have dragged Toronto back with them, they won't be selling 100%. Tickets off again, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's when you're really getting to holy shit time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, every fan's different in how they want to do it. Some are, gluttons for punishment, or just bring it on. I want to be there through the highest highs and the lowest lows, and good on you. And some people don't, want to make a few grand off their tickets when it looks bleak.
Some people want to go home before overtime and get under their weighted blanket.
Exactly. So it's called self-care, Matt.
This is it. I understand. Like I said, I am not fun to watch games with either, so I'm not ripping anybody. I don't go out. I know myself. I'm just going to sit here and, maybe for a game 1 or 2 before things have gotten really, really dangerous, you could talk me into watching with people, but beyond that, not really. Last thing on this for you, Hoff, I'm curious, we've talked about it. It was 3-0. Everybody knows what that means. Occasionally somebody comes back, and the Leafs are fragile. We know all these things. At 3-1, are you feeling any better than you did at 3-0, or do we got to get to 3-2? Like, how will this ramp back up for you where you're like, oh shit, they might actually do this?
I'm trying to moderate my expectations and not be the guys like, oh fuck, we're doing this now, Game 7.
Right.
I feel a lot better today than I did after the morning after the last game.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a dogfight, and we're still going back to Toronto, and I'm still going to be a messy basket of anxiety between now and then. If we win the next one in Toronto, then I'm going to be, when we talk this, I'm going to be absolutely insufferable and playing on your own TPSD.
Gee, wouldn't that be a change?
Wouldn't that be fun? So I'm feeling good, but I'm trying to keep it in perspective that it is a rare occurrence to come all the way back. But again, we're playing the Leafs.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything's possible. We both know that.
Please.
Let me just, I know I said that'd be the last thing on this. I am curious, we talked about Stutzla getting one in there. Brady has scored. Sanderson has scored. Is there anybody that you have watched on the Sen side of it, you're like, man, I need more out of that guy if we're going to have any chance of coming back?
Cousins for sure is an easy one.
Dylan.
Yes, right. That's so bizarre that we have two cousins.
Honestly. Sens are all about that cousin loving.
You bring a guy like that in, he's unquestionably a good hockey player. But man, there's some hot and cold there. He was kind of cooled on. He started off really well after the deal, and it's just been kind of up and down. So I'd love to see a lot more from him. Batherson's had a pretty up and down rocky series, and he's got to be going.
I thought I'd get more out of Shabbat, to be honest with you.
Shabbat, I always want to get more out of Shabbat.
Yeah.
There's two, I don't know, for the money he's making and how good a player he can be, there always seems to be a little something missing there.
Right.
And more goals from it's such a cliche that you need all your lines firing in the playoffs, but you really need those contributions from all over the lineup. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd say probably Cousins and just, couple big goals. And then you need goals from like Perron getting, into the midst like that, like the more unsung guys, the older guys.
Yeah, Gaudette gets one earlier on in the series, right? Like, you need Zetterlund.
Giroux, I think, is still such a, he's not as flashy as he once was, but the guy wins board battles like nobody's business.
Oh, yeah.
He's outstanding in the circle. He still has that intangible that is huge in the playoffs, even if he's a little slower now, but he just seems like a great guy to have around, and he's big here, and you can't overstate the significance of a guy just playing in big games like this before for a young team.
100%, man. And, on the Leaf side of it, I'm waiting for playoff Willie, because he is typically, out of the big four, the guy who does show up. And he's got points in every game. Like, he's been fine. But I'm waiting for that one. Like, he's always got this kind of buzz to him when he gets the puck kind of just inside the blue line, and he kind of circles, and it's like that scene in The Simpsons where it's like, look at that little guy. He's going to do something cool. And he just hasn't quite made that impact yet, and I feel good about that, and knowing that it's probably still to come, and it may be at a huge moment. But like the Matthews line, they've sort of done what they're supposed to do. They're quietly up 5-0 in their 5-on-5 minutes, so that's what you're looking for out of those guys. All three guys on that line have scored. Tavares has been good. We knew our depth scoring wasn't likely to be great, but Max Domi as an overtime winner. I'm just waiting for Willie to make that one game-breaking play at some point. Because he normally does. So for me, it's an obvious one. He's one of your highest paid guys. He was second or third in the league in goals this year. I feel like it's coming, but I'm just waiting for that to arrive. And maybe it's game 5. So maybe not. Yeah, that's possible too, Hoff. Why don't we talk? I wanted to get your opinion after all the years you put in working around the CFL. We heard several months ago that Randy Ambrosie would be stepping down at the end of last season as commissioner. But they took quite a while, and perhaps rightly so, to make sure they did a thorough search. And they did announce here over the last week or so that it would be Stuart Johnson of Bell Media and TSN stepping in as the new commissioner. And even as I say that, it makes me wonder how exhaustive the search was. Like, did you just cross the hall to your broadcast partner and look for an executive? But just when you heard the name, I don't know how much, if any, experience you have dealing with Stuart Johnson or how, what you know of him. But, we can kind of dig into what the job entails. But at first blush, when reading the press release and stuff, what did you think of the hire?
I don't know Stuart at all. I don't think I met him in any capacity. I knew of his existence.
Sure.
What he did. But beyond that, not a whole lot. I like it. Off the hop. I was not a huge fan of the last two people to occupy that role. So I think I've always said like a guy that's a sports guy, but not like a former player necessarily is kind of where you want to go. And I think they hit that with him.
Yeah.
He's obviously knows the game, which is great, but he also is a business guy and, being the top dog. And TSN's no joke. So I think he's got the resume for it, but it's such a shitty job that it's so hard. You never make anybody happy, and but I feel like the approach has been the same for the last couple incarnations of CFL commissioner. So I like what I've heard from him so far. I like that he's not throwing every like big wild idea into the mix right off the bat.
Yeah, you tweeted about this, after the hire was announced. Elaborate. What do you mean by that? Is this the CFL 2.0, the international thing? Like, what is it that you think they were shooting too high for?
CFL 2.0 is probably the biggest example of it. It was just kind of, in my view, it was so kind of hastily thrown at teams. It didn't really make sense at the time at all. I don't know if it does. I mean, and it's no disrespect to the global players who came over there. We had some great guys in the Red Blacks. But it was just a bizarre attempt. Like, Ambrosi just didn't focus on the product he already had in Canada as much as he should have. And he was, big, bullish on expansion. And then it would go nowhere, and then it would come up again, and then you'd have all these kind of extra little things.
Yeah, we're supposed to be in Halifax any day now, aren't we? Like,
yeah, and I've been saying for forever that it was not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, because no one can agree on how it looks if you have an Atlantic team. The touchdown Atlantic game is always a big hit, but I think it's great to do that kind of thing. But I think for a new commissioner to come in and say, I want to grow the product that we have. I want to focus on, stability for the 9 teams and, a long-term TV deal and, stuff that's like really kind of, it's also tough to come in this late in the game. So it would have been weird if you come in with big crazy ideas.
We're like camps open and
soon.
Yeah.
So I think he really seems to just want to improve on what this league has already, which is a great starting point for him, and it's the most important thing right now because, like, it's tough to make money and be successful in the CFL and change your fan base. I think one thing that he brought up that I think is great is the need to grow the younger fan base because the core CFL fan bases are getting older, shall we say?
Yeah,
and you just attendance is always a slog if you're not overly successful on the field in a given year. So you got to figure out a way to reignite that interest or get new interest to younger people. I'm not saying that every game should be like a fucking kids carnival or whatever, but because there's a balance too. Like not every adult wants to go to a game and see like inflatable castles, like bouncy castles everywhere either.
Unless the adults are allowed in.
Exactly. That's a different story.
Put the bouncy castle in the beer garden. Let's go.
There's so many like kind of gimmicks you could do, and that's part of marketing. But I think there's got to be a way to kind of do that from the ground, like from this foundation of the league, and build stuff into it. It's not just kind of team by team as much. And what can he do to grow that interest across the league and make the league more visible and make it bring it, like, the viewership numbers I think are still pretty good. You gotta keep growing. You gotta, a team like Ottawa should be selling out that stadium all the time. There's a lot of teams like that. The team's getting better, so I'm anticipating better things that way for the Red Blacks this coming year. But I think there's always more that a league can do in terms of investing in its teams and doing things more creatively to grow the sport. And at least from the outset, this guy's saying all the right things. So I'm going into it optimistically, though cautiously.
Sure. Do you have any sense, and maybe one has nothing to do with the other, but we had a conversation on the show a couple of weeks ago when the NHL announced the Canadian TV deal extension would be singularly with Rogers, and Rogers would have the ability to sell off portions of the package to whether it be Amazon or whoever they want, but they would own all the national rights. And it sort of flew in the face of a lot of what we've been seeing in the U.S. And certainly the U.S., bigger TV market, but you're seeing the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball like diversify and be on multiple networks and multiple platforms. And like people are cursing about Apple TV Plus or this is an NFL Thursday night Peacock game or whatever it is. But it makes them a pile of money. And while the CFL probably doesn't have the cachet that does, I wonder if they wouldn't be better served getting off just TSN. And we have seen them make a bit of a move to showing some games on CTV, which I think is valuable. But is there a benefit, do you think, to being on multiple platforms if you're the CFL, or do you want one super dedicated partner? Because TSN treats the CFL very well. Like, they make it look like a big game production, and sort of tied into it. Do you think the fact that you have brought in a guy very associated with TSN, will he have any time for even the idea of talking to a Sportsnet or an Amazon, or I don't know if Amazon has any interest in being on in the CFL, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, it's a good question and an interesting point. I think it's probably unlikely for the CFL to go that way. I love the idea of having a Monday night Sens game on Prime. I think it's an amazing production value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love when teams explore that kind of thing. The CFL is so entrenched with TSN, and they do a really good job with it. And they have people there that are football people, and it's a quality broadcast that is so stable. I don't know if you want to shake that up, but I don't think financially there's a lot of possibility there to go and like have multiple different outlets for it. I think you have to kind of roll with one and have maybe like a special game or three during the year on something like a Prime. But I
or even give like Sportsnet, like Friday night is not, with their national night, and get
I don't
on
really want to get
multiple
Sportsnet
networks.
anything. They just talk about the Argos all the time.
Okay.
Have you watched the Sportsnet intermission between these Sens and Leafs this series? I don't think they've mentioned Ottawa, any of them.
Well, none of us really want to, or
no, that's fair. But like, Jesus, like
you guys are supposed to be the appetizer.
Be a moose bush.
Yeah, this is it, man. I get your point on that, but I just wonder if like there isn't a value of being on City TV one night a week or something like that. Yeah.
I think you should explore it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like I have no idea what the possibilities would be, but I think as a new commissioner coming in, you'd be crazy not to look at what the options are there, because so many other leagues are doing it, and it's seemingly the way of the future.
Like the money would have to be good, because TSN does do a good job. So if somebody's just like, I guess we could show some games, and they're not really blowing you away, then I probably wouldn't mess with what you have now. But if there's somebody out there who is knocking on your door saying, hey, we'd like to get into the CFL game, maybe it's a Crave, right, which is a Canadian streaming service. I have no idea, but I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to not be tied exclusively to one platform.
No, I agree. I think the variety is the spice of life, if you will.
Yeah.
I think again, you have to explore those things if you're talking seriously about modernizing things and growing the CFL product. I think you have to look at whether or not it turns into anything. You have to at least have this conversation at some point.
Last thing for you here, Hofley. I'm curious how closely you've been watching the P-Dub. Ottawa Charge on Saturday got a huge win. I was getting a little upset. It was a weird Saturday for me, being so invested in a Ottawa hockey team in the afternoon and then switching to rooting so hard against one in the evening. But they blow a 2-0 lead, and it looks much like a lot of the season has looked like. Here we go again. Are they going to have enough scoring to get it done late? They end up in the craziest short-handed 13 seconds left. You score the game winner, get the full 3 points, which you badly need. On Sunday afternoon, Minnesota, who's right behind you, is playing. So as you and I sit here and talk, we don't know what the final in that one is going to be. But what have you thought here of the Ottawa Charge over the last couple of weeks? Certainly going into the World Championship break, and I don't know, man. It's been another tough year.
It's been a tough year, but I really have a good time watching this league. Again, I think I said it before. Not that I wanted to say I'm surprised and how much I've enjoyed PWHL games since the league came in, but it's really like the vibe at TD Place is so
set another
good.
Attendance record Saturday.
I know this, and the neighborhood. Like I live in the area, the neighborhood is just hopping, like more so than you see from a regular season 6-7 game, for instance. Mm-hmm. And it's closer to what you get and for bigger games, like maybe not quite in Red Blast level in terms of the neighborhood. The neighborhood is jammed. The restaurants are jammed.
Yeah.
And the product's just great, and you see a late last second winner like that. It's such a cool thing to have another element like that to the Ottawa sports scene, and it's so successful, and the fan base is so fired up. But yeah, that team needs to, on the ice, figure it out a little bit more.
I do wonder a little bit, man, if at the end of the year, and look, maybe you squeak in here in the 4th spot, we'll see what's going to play out, but I wonder if Carla McLeod gets a 3rd year, right? Like if this doesn't go well, Mark.
Yeah, it's hot. It's still pro. It's still pro sports, right? It's a
this
lot
is
of
what these women have wanted
lately.
for a very long time. Stop talking about how great a story the league is. Like start talking about what's wrong with the power play, or the on ice story. So.
And I think that's finally starting to happen. It's like you're getting out of that honeymoon phase of like, how great is this, and what a cool thing. And even though I just spent time talking about that, so I really do believe it. But yeah, you're talking about just hockey stuff, and it's Carla McLeod's popular coach.
Yep.
I've met her a couple times. She's great, and the players seem to like her. But again, it's pro hockey, and just because
players love DJ
coach,
Smith.
Yeah. Oh wow. Let's pump the brakes.
Well, a lot of them did. They were upset when he got fired. And at some point,
fans less so.
Yes.
You can't. Again, it's like you can't be. It's not about who your friend is on the team. They can always get traded. Like Josh Norris getting traded. Him and Brady were buddies. Brady was bad.
Yep.
You move on.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's because you can't. You're not going to keep her just because she's the first Ottawa Charge coach ever. If you feel like you need to make big changes. You have to do it. But
New York made changes after a bad first season. Minnesota made changes and they won the thing. Like it's a business still, and the business is winning.
Wins are still going to make you more money at the end of the day.
That's right, man.
So I think, if they don't make the playoffs, I think you're going to see probably some big changes. I don't know if they'll go all the way up to the coach, but we'll see. I think having those conversations is great now because this city is scarred for the success of that team, and it's it's good and it's fun hockey to watch. But again, we want playoffs, we want big wins.
This is it. Hopefully, after Tuesday, the Ottawa Charge is the only hockey team in town left standing, and we can get a little tighter focus on them.
And hopefully by Wednesday, Matt's drinking 18% beer or straight out of a trough.
We have an old English on the next episode of the podcast.
Oh yeah, when I was in 40s.
Yeah, this is it, man. Hoff, you've redeemed yourself. Appreciate you making the time on a Sunday afternoon. Anything else on your radar coming up this week other than the obvious thing on Tuesday?
No, just the game on Tuesday, and trying to focus on my day job in between all of that is good because still got to pay those bills, so I can pay my internet to watch these games that stress me out so much.
Eat Canadian chicken, folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, elbows
Fresh
up.
chicken, always Canadian, raised by a Canadian farmer.
There you go. Wings up, elbows up. It'll be perfect, man. Hoff, thanks for doing it, buddy. Appreciate it as always.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
We'll wrap it up here. We'll be back later on this week in one form or another. As you all know, we're sort of half in, half out of the studio. So the schedule remains in flux, but we will be back. Stay tuned. Have yourselves a great week. Follow along on social media at Tall Can Audio. Subscribe to the pod wherever you're hearing us. We'll see you next time.
I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.